Hi, my name is Elvira Horvai with NewCrits, and I'm here today with Devin Kenny. NewCrits is a global platform for virtual art mentorship and community through interviews, texts, and more. So we're here today to explore what we mean by critique or a crit and why they're so valuable. And we're using these videos for everyone to get to know the people of NewCrits. So let's start. My first question for you is, are there any ways that you like to conduct critique? Does that follow in the tradition of critique that you grew up in, or have you had to find a different path?
It's crucial to get a handle on what kind of conversation the person is seeking. So my first step is learning that from them. And if they're unsure, I'm happy to dive in after that. I'm lucky enough to have experienced several forms of critique over the years, whether it be purely formal, cold reads, or technical, or dealing with conceptual challenges or other modes of critique. Um, Having had innumerable critiques in both group settings and individually gives me a handy toolkit for talking about work in a variety of ways, and using that to help the artist get a fresh perspective is really enriching for me.
What do you think is the value in critique?
Critique allows us to get distance, to witness how others experience what we've been working on. It allows us to determine if the conversations we want to facilitate through the work are happening, or if the landscapes we want to cultivate and support through our art object or art experience are there. So it just gives us a little bit of a clue as to some ways that people might experience the thing. Yeah.
Right. Distance is a really good word. That is what it feels like. For like a second, you get to see it through someone else's eyes.
Yeah.
And that's a really
Which
good
is,
experience.
yeah, it can be really refreshing too, because when you're in the process of making the thing, you're so intimately aware of all of these details that you might miss some things that are the first thing that pop up to someone that is coming to it for the first time. So critique gives you that too. Yeah.
Exactly. Actually, since we're on to this, I'll jump to a different question, which is if you think more in terms of ideas, like the why, the conceptual oriented, or in terms of material, like the how. Um, so in other words, do you find yourself more in the details of your work, or are you hovering more in the big picture?
Shout out to In Other Words. Uh, hmm. My way of working, yeah, my way of working is a hybrid.
Right.
I'm driven by language, but not just words. It can be the way a thing is done that's expressive to me and draws me in. Um, whether that's music or fabric or image or object or action or link, the way is really important and usually guides the materials I use. The the things I learn about materials and processes and their histories can get me to want to explore them as well. So I am thinking really in terms of conceptual aspects, but the material aspects kind of are interwoven. Um, in my own experience, like when I was learning about art, it was kind of a generalist approach. So that means that there weren't any majors when I was studying, and I was really drawn to that because I wanted to learn how to choose the best medium for the job, so to speak.
Mm.
But after starting in that way, I learned that things are much more open and exciting, and every medium is full of possibilities. So I think that's how I've been able to develop this kind of hybrid approach in my own artwork.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's a different way of thinking about it too. Like, what do you think of first? The medium or the idea? Like, you find the medium that fits the idea better, you know?
Right, right.
Um, so yeah, at what point in your process do you find yourself in need of feedback?
It depends. I'd say partially depends on the scope of the project, how
Mm.
many people are involved, um, and how many people will get the opportunity to see or experience the piece. Um, but I'd say while sometimes I seek feedback early in the process to get confirmation that I'm kind of going on the right path, and that some of the things I'm aiming for are visible. Usually, I seek feedback when I have a kind of dry run or prototype of the thing ready to go. So it's usually before it's in a near complete state, but after I've done the brainstorming and testing out of things. Yeah.
So when there's still room for some change.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because I think I've learned that because in some cases, I've had a critique when um, the piece is already settled in my mind, like I've already moved past it, and it's more about, oh, what is this doing, rather than how can I improve it. And I've gotten uh, feedback which was like, oh yeah, what if you did this, what if you did that, what if you changed this aspect. It's like, well, that is not possible at this particular moment, but for maybe for the next piece, that kind of feedback is helpful. So I think that also maybe goes back to the first question, where it there's a kind of responsibility and an opportunity that the artist has and the person that's critiquing has to start building a dialogue, and having information on what kind of conversation you'd like to have makes it more productive. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. They're just, yeah, different stages of critique. And you
Yes.
need to kind of like establish that, I guess. Um, and then the last question is, where do you find inspiration?
Inspiration is everywhere. For
Yeah.
real. Um, yeah. I well, I've spent like years and years and years trying to learn how to take pleasure in observation without judgment, and feeding a kind of curiosity about how things come together and what happens next, or what can happen next, or what usually happens next, and how can I do something different than that. Um, I think experiencing different kinds of critique has given me an ability to think about things in different ways and appreciate different qualities of things too. So inspiration isn't so elusive for me. It's more what to do with the inspiration, really. Which steps to take next? Like, oh, this is a really interesting thing. Can I proceed on a project with this? Um, and how? And all of those kinds of things. Which, yeah, I guess I'm lucky in that way. Um, and I I do think that being able to speak with other people, people that care about looking at and thinking about things in the world, and people that care about making things in the world, can help. You get different perspectives, which can open you up to new kinds of inspiration that you previously hadn't thought of. Like, yeah, I don't have to go to a beautiful place to get inspiration.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. That was
Thank
awesome.
you. Yeah, it was great to like think about these kinds of things. So yeah,
Yeah,
looking
same.
forward.